I definitely have this on streaming, so I'm going to have one stereo track. Does that matter?
Yeah.
Test. Okay, from here on out, this recording will be much better. Everybody just give me a test.
Test. It's just usually they have to be corrected.
When is Fabian with us?
From Indianapolis, Indiana, this is Truthache.
Can I tell you about my haircut this morning?
Yeah, let's hear about your haircut. This was there was a lot of suspense around this.
Yeah,
story.
we're going to air this too. So Michelle, if you're listening, please know that I understand you don't want to be on social media, but you're still on social media.
Yeah, we're putting you there.
We are. So we were talking about Charlie Kirk. We were talking about the latest, greatest tyranny that's happening in our government, or the proposed tyranny that's happening. We had just a really good conversation. And I posed the question that I've been posing all week. We'll never know the answer to this question. If Charlie Kirk could come back from being killed by a gun that he was a proponent of, would he still feel the way he did prior to being killed? And none of us can answer that. And Michelle posed the question, what if he was just, I know this sounds horrible, but what if he was just really injured badly, like really badly, and it would scar him for the rest of his life? Do you think he would think differently? And I said, that's a really great question.
I think that's a better scenario than coming back from the dead.
Yes, I do too.
Not only that, also possible.
Yeah, right. So, and then the bigger question became, do you think his children would think differently 10 years from now, 20 years from now, because of what has been inflicted upon him? So we got into that big conversation, but here's where it got really interesting. Michelle said to me, both sides are crazy, because she said, I don't know if she agrees or disagrees with Charlie's political views. I said I did, but I certainly don't think anyone should be killed for your political beliefs. And she absolutely agreed with that. And she said, the irony is that he stood up for his beliefs and got killed. And now the other side, here's the irony, is now going to attack whatever that is, right? Just whatever that is. And it was interesting because her two children were there this morning at 9:00, and they're adorable little kids. And she's the parent amongst the kids. And what I realized in the middle of our conversation is we need a grown-up in the room sometimes when it comes to this very conversation that you wrote about today. I feel like we don't have a grown-up in the room. I feel like I'm going to do something, I'm going to speak my whatever, and if I get killed for it, that I'm going to come after you on my side and try to knock you out or take you out. It's like, where the hell's the happy medium? Where do we find, where do we find the middle ground?
Yeah.
Or is there a middle ground? I don't know. But it was a fun conversation. It was really cool.
Whether there's a middle or not, there's definitely some combination that comes from listening to one another.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Something good comes from that.
So I've always had this theory that the reason why urban settings are more Democrat and rural settings are more
this is
Republican.
Yeah, do tell.
This is not based on data. This is just like me observing the world. And
this is Herndon marketing data.
Of course. I believe that I should say it seems that the reason why you have more diversity, or because you have more diversity in an urban setting, people are more close to each other physically, like their proximity is closer, right, and they're more exposed to different types of people, including wealth and poverty. And therefore, there's an inclination to have a sentiment of supporting your fellow man.
More tolerance, maybe?
Yeah.
For each other.
But I think more like favoring policies that support other people. Okay. Yes. So, the Democrat Party is largely the proponent of things like welfare. Not that they invented it or the only ones that vote for it, right, but that's kind of just like where you would see them lean. And then the Republican Party, they're more similar to being independent, being a self-starter, having control over their domain and that sort of thing. And in the rural settings, you have your larger plots of land and you have bigger distances between communities and individuals and things like that. So I've just always wondered if that sort of fed into that
the cycle,
idea, or if if I'm totally wrong, then why are people that are likely to vote more left-leaning moving to cities and people that aren't moving away?
So that's a great question. And I want to get this out before I forget about it. I would like to understand why one side, let's say with Charlie just for a second. Charlie's out there speaking his piece, telling his truth with regards to the right to bear arms. And he gets taken out for it. And our current administration wants to shut down anything that's bad or indifferent, or at least we're being told that. They want to close that down, right? They want to cap that off. Well, why is it okay for Charlie to speak his piece, but anyone that speaks out against him is wrong? Or why is that suddenly a bad thing? And
that's a really great question, Michael.
And I think someone wrote about it today.
So, the woke left, as they call it, got all this heat and PR time for cancel culture. And it is loosely mapped to politics, but it definitely does kind of somewhat map to politics. And, the Republicans complained about it forever. They just would not shut up about how much it was just bullshit that, people were getting shut down for having a view that disagreed with the orthodox, left-leaning idea.
Right.
And, but now the government itself is making what appears to be bigger moves than ever to shut down.
It sure does seem like it.
Ideologies and speech.
It seems like
Aaron disagrees. Let's hear it.
Yeah, do tell.
It's amazing how nobody seems to remember anything every time.
Isn't that the truth?
So there's a lot of different questions.
Shoot.
Right? No, I'm just saying there's a lot of different questions here. And so Daniel, you raise a really good point. And I'm going to bring it back to something you said. Sure. I kind of, I think rankle is the right word rancor. I don't know. I tighten up when I hear people.
It's a sphincter move. It
is a sphincter move. Yes. There's a sphincter clenching somewhere, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually.
We are PG rated, right?
No, but definitely PG-13.
Okay.
So when I hear the both sides, anytime somebody tries to frame something both sides, it's usually, in my mind, it's meant to create a fake argument. But I do agree that we are dealing with an opposition. I do not believe the opposition is itself left or right or conservative or liberal, which, by the way, no longer map to left and right.
Right.
It is civilization.
Correct. Not right.
Yes, you agree. Yeah.
We agree.
You got to be careful.
We agree. You're right.
But what was presented to me some weeks ago was that what the sides are: civilization and chaos.
Yeah.
That is what the conflict is. And Daniel, you opened this up with a call to civilization.
Right.
Which is, let us have a conversation, let us hear different opinions. Let this be a place where you can say what you need to say. And I realize, it's small scale, it's safe, we're homogenous in almost every way, but that is an example of a call to civilization versus a call to chaos.
Yeah.
And I think that underlies a lot. My comment about sort of my skepticism or the memory of, and this is not any defense of what is happening, because if the question is, should the government be able to put pressure on private industries to cancel? No, I don't like that. I mean, can they? Yeah, but should they? I don't like it.
Right.
Except unless I do, and I can think of like 10 examples in which I would want them to, but that's not this.
Right.
Can you give an example?
It kind of would be helpful to hear one
just like
example.
An idea of where you think it would be okay.
A call to eradicate a religious population.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You're saying
I would like the government to maybe not let that happen and be amplified.
Not let it happen.
prevent it from happening.
Thank you.
Right.
Just
So
to be clear.
that would require censorship. That requires shutting
Okay.
down. There's also some really interesting differences between broadcast versus cable, and why some people can do things and some people can't. And there's also corporate interests and issues, and mostly just a lot of dishonesty, misinformation, and manipulation. But that's always my stance.
Yep.
So one of the things, I try to figure out why people like politicians for any reason.
Me too.
Because I like, it's not like a baseball player or something, and it's certainly not somebody you should look up to.
Yeah.
Again, personal opinion.
I would agree with you.
But one of the things that I heard when somebody said that they did not vote for Trump, they do not want Trump to be president, which I don't either. Less because of him and more because of what people do because he's president. But I don't want him to be president for other reasons too.
Yeah.
But one of the things that they found fascinating was his audacity and his willingness to do things in public that are supposed to be done in private. Mm. So this latest example with just him saying, hey, we should get rid of somebody because I don't like him, which he says almost every day. And people getting upset about it. Now, again, it's mid-September, so the newsroom just got back to work and everybody's got a boner over all the stories they get to run with now. And it's disgusting to watch the machine go burr. But nobody was upset for the last 5 years when it was done systematically by the administration through the FBI. We know with X, we know with Facebook and Meta and Instagram that they were pressured by the administration. They had set up channels. They were given instructions repeatedly at scale, hundreds of people, deplatformed, silenced, investigated, etc. So the question, the thing that bothers me is not the question is, should this be allowed? That's a great question. The question is, why are we pretending we're all of a sudden upset when it's been going on at scale for a long time? And not just the last administration, not just Trump's first. Right. This is how business is done.
Sure.
The fascinating thing, and someday when all the insanity is past and we can like settle down and look back, what changed was we saw what was happening and we're fucking horrified.
In real time.
We see what's happening. Even my wife said, I understand that this isn't any different than what you were telling me about a few years ago. But I just wish we could pretend that this didn't happen.
Right. Behind closed doors.
Yeah. Not that I don't want it to happen, and not that I'm going to stand up for anybody when it does happen. Because again, Kimmel, the thing that happened was kind of wild, and it's obviously they're trying to get out of their contract with them. He lost 80% of their audience over the last 8 years.
I don't know.
Right?
I don't know anything.
Well,
about
no. It's an opportunistic thing.
Okay.
Right. Maybe not just, but it was an opportunistic thing.
Yep.
But it certainly wasn't egregious, and it wasn't nearly at the scale of the shit that they've done in the past. Right?
So
does anybody here still think that in his first administration, Trump called neo-Nazis fine people? Do we all know better? We know that was completely discredited. That was one of the biggest media hoaxes. It's in textbooks.
Well, I've never thought that because I watched the entire clip.
You did.
Yeah.
So you watched him.
Yeah.
So good. So thank you. And that's one of the reasons I respect you, even though we don't agree.
Right.
Because I know that you want to know. And for me in 2017, that was a big rift in the world.
Yeah.
Because I saw the press conference and I saw him interrupt a reporter and go, no. We're talking about the community debating statues.
Right.
These people condemned entirely. And he said it twice.
Right.
Yeah.
And then late night TV ran it for months.
Yeah. I think that
Biden based his campaign on it because he knew there were enough people foolish enough to believe it.
So what you're pointing out is something, and I think this may even be part of your
sorry,
point.
I got a little.
That's
little
all right. No, that was
about
really great. Really great speech you got there.
Thank you for interrupting because I got 45 more minutes. That's just one of 20.
So I I think that what you're describing is something that has always happened in politics. What happens in, kind of like public discourse is the media or the politicians or whoever else will
a collaboration
latch on to a phrase and repeat it because that's how things stick, right? So
100%.
that is both the correct thing to do, and also in these cases that you mentioned, many of them that you didn't mention, is manipulating the public.
Correct.
So what I would add to this, as we think about this, something that I would think is an important thing to add to it is that the only way to have public conversation, which I think is somewhat important for the sake of moving public policy forward, is to have narratives to base it around. And I think personally that those narratives should be honest, but they have to be truncated data because you can't cover every single detail.
That is the hard part,
and
because everything is context. Yeah.
Right. And the dishonesty is the part that is sort of like manipulating the quote. It was a real quote, but it was out of context.
And misrepresenting what the quote was.
Exactly.
That's our social media. And I'm putting the news networks in social media.
It is media. Yeah. Yes, period. Social is just the one that goes straight into our brain while we're taking a shit.
I mean, it doesn't matter to me which network you watch. I choose not to watch any of them. But if you watch a network, a news network, it's completely biased to whatever it is they're trying to turn you on with, right? Or grab your hook.
Because they got to keep you there till after the commercials.
They have an audience to appeal to.
Right.
And in the example of the late night hosts, and there's three I grouped together because I watched them completely fall into delusion and never recover.
Yeah.
And it was Kimmel, Colbert, and John Oliver.
Mm-hmm.
Lost their goddamn minds. Because they couldn't be happier about this lie that they ran with. That again, having watched the press conference initially, I was shocked to hear about it the next day. Like, well, that's not what happened. And then to hear it repeated. I'm sorry.
No. Have you guys seen the interview with Johnny Carson from 60 Minutes a long time ago? For the audience that may be listening to this, Johnny Carson was the original late night host.
Yeah. No, I don't know.
So they interviewed Johnny, and he's asked why he doesn't take a political platform on his show. And he is quoted as saying, and I'm paraphrasing, "My show is not a platform for politics. My show is a platform for comedy. And the moment I cross that line is the moment we are no longer a comedic show. And that's not who we are."
And that is...
I give him a lot of credit for saying that out loud.
And that was, that was a different generation of people.
It was.
And I used to be very angry that people were so blatantly lying.
Oh, yeah.
And, well, no, but hang on. And I'm sure some are. There are liars.
Well,
there are grifters.
Sure.
There are, right? But what was even more disturbing is as I tried to talk to people about it who would repeat the words that they were being told. And it's like, no. Like, hey, I want to interrupt you because you're going to embarrass yourself if you talk to an informed person.
Yeah, right.
The glaze, the cognitive dissonance that completely shut down.
Yeah, like that can't be.
It's the only time I've been personally attacked. I lost a few friends trying to appeal to them like, hey, you got to stop believing this shit.
Yeah.
And let me show you what, like, here's a really easy one. This isn't a debatable, well, what he really meant was, no. But to your point with those hosts, when people think they're in power, you get to see who they are, right?
For sure.
And I think we're seeing an ugly side of that now.
Here's what I'm thinking out loud.
Yeah.
And I have no dog in this fight. Let's say those three late night hosts that we're talking about. Is it possible that they feel like their world is caving in on them and they feel they need to fight back or react or overreact or whatever you want to use?
I think I'm going to give them benefit of the doubt because I've not known personally, but I've known of Jimmy Kimmel for 20 some years back when he was in blackface and having the juggies and all that.
Yes.
He was a very close friend of Adam Carolla, and their relationship separated because Adam Carolla was very much like, this isn't happening.
Right.
And Jimmy insisted it was. And he didn't talk about about it much, but it was clear that no, he really believes, and he's so insulated and so motivated. And that's not to diminish, but he lost a huge chunk of his audience in that first term because he thought that, as all smug, arrogant hubris practices are, right? Like your world crumbles around you and you wonder what's wrong with everybody until you're alone. And then someday you go, oh shit, maybe it's me.
Yeah.
But once you lose half of your audience, you only have half to pander to.
Yeah.
Are you saying that they had a disagreement based on just disagreements on
politics,
Trump stuff?
That, and again,
you said that this isn't happening. What is that? What is
that the things that Jimmy was saying as a host?
Okay.
Adam Carolla was reaching out to him, going, "Hey, man, that never happened. You're smarter than this.
Right.
Here's why."
Right.
And the weird thing is you get accused of being pro-Trump when you try to point out.
I've had that happen to me,
because as a lifelong Democrat,
right? I've had this happen
as a center classical liberal,
right?
Except in some financial cases. Anybody who's owned their own business has a little conservative streak in them.
Yeah, a little Republican in you.
I was horrified because I'm like, hey, we can't be this. This is what I'm seeing is disgusting.
Right.
I thought we were better than this. And that was my mistake, because I thought there was a better. I don't know anything about power. I don't know anything about politics. This is how it's played. Yeah. And the grossness of Trump is that it is on display. Not that it's new.
Right.
It's that this is how it works.
Here's something that I would point out, though. I think that what is, you're exactly right. I think that people have overreacted and falsely, judged details falsely, or twisted them, or accepted a narrative that was totally made up,
or bend it to their belief, right?
Or just didn't assume they were being lied to. Right. I mean, most of us don't.
And I think
I didn't.
I think that that's the way that humans work.
That's the way,
that's the way that it works. But what I would also interrupt you to say is that that the Trump administration is trying to take power, and every president does that.
Yes.
But this one appears to be much different than any of the others in my lifetime, not in history.
It feels that way.
And here is why. Because the Trump administration is trying to take control of the arts and take control of the media through multiple channels. Direct intervention using the FCC, using lawsuits, various kinds of lawsuits. Some, at least judges, seem to think that they're meritless. Others maybe do actually have merit. And because they're taking all of these tools to control what information gets out into the public. And so this, J.D. Vance has his, takes over Charlie Kirk's podcast, and he makes it very clear, along with Stephen Miller, that they believe that this one guy that shot Charlie Kirk, who was a jackass and did the wrong thing, is part of a coordinated network.
But he's not, is he?
Is there any coordinated terrorist?
There is an argument for that. Yeah.
Okay. So.
True. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's too soon.
That's what I meant.
Right.
But I have seen the argument.
I have too.
So I'd be happy to find out the truth if that is true. But to me, based on what I see, which is, and for me, it's always long form. I always go into the source. I always watch the actual podcast by the vice president, and that's 2 hours long instead of the quotes in the newspaper. And
I don't.
At least you're getting the propaganda straight,
right?
Like you're getting it from the horses, the donkey's mouth.
Yeah, the donkey's mouth.
Exactly. And what I'm saying is what the vice president said does matter. What somebody quotes him as saying and then takes out of context is questionable, even if it's correct or incorrect, it is worthy of being questioned and challenged. And so it's very clear that they believe that there's this terrorist network, or that they would like us to believe that.
I think it's the latter.
And I think it's the latter.
I do too.
And
Well, by the way, it very well could be both sincerely
It could be.
right.
and not be true.
Yeah,
right.
right.
And so,
Yeah.
Good point.
according to the studies, there's political violence on, I would have to say all sides, because there's not only two. 22% of it is Islamic. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Maybe it's a bullshit study, but let me finish my point really
it's
quick.
the Anti-Defamation League and the Southern Poverty Law Center, and they classify political violence as politically motivated violence as right wing, which means BLM riots are right wing, which means Antifa is right wing. That's why. So I'm sorry I interrupted. That was rude, but
Right.
I'll wait till you're done to dismantle your argument.
Right. So the point is just that there is not a side that owns political violence
I
is
agree
my
with
core
that.
point.
Yes.
But there is a party that is in power that is subject to the whims of one person who would like to go after one part of that type of violence.
I do think that's, Aaron, I think you said it earlier, and that is the issue with Trump is
He makes you watch.
he does it right in front of your face.
Yep.
He doesn't do it behind closed doors. To your point, Daniel, right? If we didn't see him do that,
If he just did it the way it's always done,
we would all feel a little bit better about it, right? But because he stands out there in front of everybody and at that
runs his
moment,
goddamn mouth.
and says, "This is what we're doing," and you're like, "Holy Batman, you can't do that."
Let me add what I consider a context. So
Okay.
to your point about earlier that he is attacking the media and the arts and trying to dismantle them and going after these institutions. So
It does feel that way, by the way.
sure. Yeah. And the reason is because those, I'm being a bit of a devil's advocate, but I would say I largely agree with this, even though it serves my side or has served my side for most of my adult life, is that those institutions are captured.
Mm-hmm.
They actively coordinated in sedition against a sitting president in Trump's first term. Time magazine wrote the best article that outlined how Google, Meta, the network media, all of these institutions coordinated, and I'm sure they expressed it in quite the right way to make it not like literally illegal, coordinated to save democracy by silencing him. Google is now is one of the least credible sources for me. I stopped using it when they started hiding information, particularly around the Charlottesville. You couldn't find that video for 3 years.
Are they down, by the way? I know you said you're not using them, but are they down?
No, I'm sure they're fine.
No.
No.
I thought maybe you were.
Well,
trying to
they're
make a point there.
for the
Sorry.
first time ever, they're losing to AI, but no, they're still dominant in every way.
Sorry.
And
I thought you were going.
no,
somewhere else with
they are the biggest. They're the biggest Democratic donor, both corporately and privately.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for why tech tends to support Democrats is because Democrats regulate, and regulation kills tech. And so they know they have to play that game. Yeah. And when leadership changes, you notice they all go and then sit at the new table. But the reason that they're going after these institutions, the argument that could be made for it is that they have been captured. They have been serving the Democratic Party. They have been misinforming and manipulating the public. And so rather than forcing them to not do that, they're simply attempting to disempower them through funding. Yeah. Is that good or not? I don't think it's good.
Yeah,
I don't think any of it's good, but it certainly has happened. Every source that I used to trust prior to 2016 is now amongst the least credible media. And that is New York Times, Washington Post, Wikipedia's garbage, Reddit went sideways.
Wall Street.
Google.
The Journal.
Well, I was going to say Wall Street Journal was the only one that told the truth about some of these bigger hoaxes earlier on in the editorial.
Right.
Their main editing and narrative.
Right.
And the article in Time, I'll share it with you guys later, It's really fascinating because depending on your perspective of that time, you either walk away with tears in your eyes thinking, thank God we have patriots saving this country, or holy shit, we are fucked. This is the most corrupt institutional capture we've ever had.
I want to stay with that thought for a second.
But again, it's perspective.
Right. So when I was talking with Michelle this morning, there were two overwhelming thoughts that came to my mind and I shared with her. And that is 90%, maybe it's 95%, maybe it's 87% of our population act like sheep. Yeah. They just get herded around, right? They're shameless.
Sheep, shepherds, wolves, and dogs.
Yes. And they get led by fill in the blank, which made me think of this. Is the world a cough away from catastrophe and we just don't know it? And our leaders are trying to protect us from that. And we just don't understand it because we can't see everything they see. In other words, maybe I've watched one too many lioness shows on Paramount.
I know what I'm driving at?
Like there's so much bad out there that I can't tell you the general 90% that are sheep, how bad it is.
Oh yeah, you know what's worse than lying to us? Telling us the truth.
That's where I'm going with this.
Well, and my suggestion of the importance of dangerous men as a topic for the future, that's part of that reason. Is the only reason we can walk around thinking we have rights and deserve stuff and that everybody can do whatever they like. It's only because we are surrounded by very dangerous people.
Yeah, I see what's happening.
I agree that we aren't. I don't think we're capable of having.
I don't either.
I don't. So I don't blame them for it.
I walk around.
I don't like it,
and I see us as a country, as a society, and we're all caught up in this little feudal system against each other. And I think behind that curtain lies real danger. Yeah, and we
are insulated.
Yeah,
and we especially are insulated.
Yeah,
we're here in a very stable part of the country. Especially if you don't live in like the Northeast environment.
Yeah.
Even
someone wrote about that this
morning. Though Indianapolis has, is reported one of the highest gun violence areas, it's incredibly concentrated and it doesn't affect any of us.
That is probably the one thing that still makes me lay awake at night, and that is the gun issue. I don't have a solution. I don't know what the answer is. I do know it's a pain in the ass.
We can't have a real conversation about guns.
No, we can't. There's just way too much.
You're talking about the country or the three of us?
Yes. Us, especially. We can't.
I'll
wait till we're off air.
Have you ever owned a gun?
Yes.
Michael?
Yeah.
And do you own one currently?
I do not, but...
Are you against yourself owning?
No, I am not. Okay. I'm not against it.
Are you anti-Second Amendment?
Yeah.
No.
So one of the reason why I asked,
to a degree I am, but not. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So one of the things that the way that I would characterize my view on guns is I am not against any one person owning a gun, but I cannot escape the statistical reality.
That's where I'm
of
at.
What happens when we have as many guns as we have now. Obviously, gun violence is not only because of guns, but it is enormously increased because of the existence of guns.
For sure.
Right? Yeah. So when you look at statistics, you have to judge, public health crisis different than you judge an individual person who has, whatever.
Okay, so I want to thank you for saying that, because in any conversation we may get into, it is important to distinguish between people and persons.
Yeah.
And you can generalize in a lot of ways that are accurate in a general sense, but almost never accurate in a specific sense.
Yes. So I have a friend who owns I probably have several, but I'm only thinking of one person who owns 30, 40 guns and of all types of guns.
Sure.
There's actually a classification of that. I think that's enthusiast at that point.
And he has a couple of big safes and, really nice accessories and all this kind of stuff.
I consider that a collector. If you have more guns than hands in the house, that's now it's a thing.
I think he has 3 kids and still has more guns than hands. He has a flak jacket, as you would expect. But the thing...
See, now I want to keep an eye on that.
I would too. You just crossed the line.
I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong. I'm just saying I want to know who you are.
Uzis and flapjackets cross the line for me, but go on.
The thing that I would say about this guy is, he was also ex-military and had proper training and stuff. I don't think for 1 second that it doesn't bother me that he's
not a
guns.
threat.
I don't consider him a threat. I also don't consider his house unsafe,
Right.
because there's, multiple guns there probably in each room. And, but yet when we look at the number of guns in the United States compared to other countries per capita, then the number of gun deaths in the United States.
Gun deaths or gun violence, that's a very skewed statistic depending on your definition. I'm only
talking about gun deaths, which includes both violence and suicides.
Okay, well, you have to include suicide because then it's a different conversation.
Right. So
but go on.
So all I'm talking about is guns and gun deaths. Okay. Those numbers correlate so strongly, especially when you look at the rest of the world. There's like an anomalous
there's a few countries.
There's a country that's different, significantly different. I think it's Brazil. They have like an enormous level of crime by comparison. And then there's another
There's white Norwegian countries that have more guns than people, and there's no gun violence.
Yeah, but they're all like required to do a certain amount of military service.
Canada's another example too. There's a lot of guns, but not a lot of gun violence.
But if you just look at the whole world and the numbers,
this is where my head's at.
There's nuances to every study.
No, but there is something special about America.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
And it's unfortunate that we won't do anything about it because everybody. And largely because of politics and donors and all that, everybody feels threatened by the opposition to their
of course, and
their strategy, business. Their choice, their direction.
So, when I was as a kid growing up in the northwest corridor of Illinois, it was farm country. We grew up with rifles, shotguns, and occasionally we took pistols out and screwed around shooting targets, whatever, duck hunting, bird hunting.
Pheasants, kids used to have rifles in their truck at high school.
Yeah. My friends did, right? Yeah. So my mother and I had this conversation recently about how I grew up in that environment. And I was quick to point out, 40 years ago, that environment was innately different than what it is today with children running around with guns. In other words, when I say children, 16, 17, 18-year-olds driving around in a pickup truck with guns today in an urban city, can you imagine that people would just lose their mind over it? I don't have any issue owning a gun. I have a lifetime permit for a firearm. I went and got that.
Yeah, concealed carry.
Yeah, I went and did that 6 or 7 years ago when I thought it might be going away because I wanted the option to have that.
It's also a federal ID. It helps.
It does. I am not a fan of
constitutional carry.
That and any type of military grade weapon. I do not feel.
What does that mean to you?
Like an AK fill in the blank.
So are you talking about automatic rifles? Because those aren't legal.
No. Well, they're not, but I just saw someone go on.
He's generalizing, and
I
think that we know what you mean. Yeah. I know what you mean.
Well, he's talking about guns that look military spec. There's not a lot of difference between guns. A hunting rifle and an AR-15 just have a different package.
Correct.
But they operate the same.
Yes. Well, they all operate the same.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But like the thing,
that's
not legal.
Yeah, I'm totally not in favor of that. But there are people that own those.
But guns. There are some. You're right. There's people. I mean,
some of the school shootings
back
that
in the
happened,
A-team days, we called that machine guns.
Yeah, I still call it machine guns. But some of the school shootings that have taken place have happened with that type of weaponry, not just a shotgun, not just a rifle.
The biggest issue is pistols being converted.
Correct. That is a huge issue.
They create a thing called a switch that makes them fully automatic.
Yeah. So I'm not in favor of any of that. But anyway, we digress. My whole point on why I brought that up is at some point in time, and I think I posted this to the two of you this week. In my lifetime, I don't think the social media and the gun issue are going to be resolved in my lifetime. And let's be generous and give myself another 40 years. That puts me over 100 years of age. I just don't see
which I think you'll make it.
Yeah, thanks. I'll probably wish I put a gun to my head by then. I just don't know if I feel like we're the
I think
puppets.
You're right.
Well,
I think you're absolutely right.
You could be right.
And I don't know like if you were wrong, it would be because something major happened that shifted the willingness, gave the population the will to
which makes me
make some kind of change. And Sandy Hook was not that thing. So it's going to have to be something bigger.
I thought it was Sandy Hook. I thought it was the governor. I thought it was the shot at Trump. I thought it was JFK. I thought it was so many examples where we've had so many high profile.
Instead, we're going to crush the left wing ideological terrorist groups. So I want to ask about another topic. Yeah. And I have been paying a lot of attention to reading a lot of the World War II lead up history where Hitler comes into power and he starts to take over as chancellor and then essentially become the Führer of Germany and then shift them towards fascism, push for essentially, cripple their constitutional government. And then
takes over the military,
and then basically causes a bunch of other problems that turns into World War II eventually. So I've also been paying attention to what Trump's strategy, and I'm not talking about just the news or the news feed, but his actual strategy of converting the government, much of which I'm impressed by. I want to just add
I know, right?
As a business person, I'm thinking, okay, he has said he has taken areas where these are laws. We have to identify ways to navigate laws. And these are norms. And
we're going to kick the shit out of them.
We're going to do why follow a norm if there's
if it's not illegal. Serving a purpose, in one opinion.
And for every president, it's their purpose. So I get that there's an ego. You have to have an ego to be president. So I'm not trying to say that there's only.
You have to be a psycho to be president.
I agree.
Right.
And a schizophrenic.
So there are countless parallels between the two. And the more I dig into it, and again, no strange podcasts, just actual information that is of actual occurrences of what is really happening, the more it seems to me like the early stages of Hitler's reign are very similar to the strategy that the Project 2025, if you will, that Trump has been implementing. And I know
I'm surprised that came back.
Yeah.
So one of the things about Project
2025, because he was like, what the fuck is that? Have nothing to do with it.
He had a lot to do with it, by the way. But it was bad PR, so he knows how to navigate PR.
He got himself out of it, and he did have. I know for a fact he had a lot to do with
it. And people did say it was actually a very good plan, regardless of who was presenting it.
Yes,
they were
just the same. I've heard the exact same. Can I interrupt for a second?
Yeah, you can.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Aaron is rubbing off on me, and some
right now.
Some would argue in a good and or bad way, but it makes me wonder, Daniel. I feel the same way of what you just described, but then I have an overwhelming thought of
suspicion.
Yes. Like, it goes back to that. Are we in the dark on purpose? Like, is there something bigger going on? And you will thank me later for doing this because you just have none for me, guys. I'm driving. I've got a lot going on afterwards. It makes me wonder, is there something else going on that we're just not in tune with? And if so, would we agree? If we were in tune with it, would we agree with it? Give me an example of
what that might be.
And the devil's greatest trick was to convince us he doesn't exist, right?
Yes. I don't know if I have a good example, Daniel, other than, in business, the three of us can relate to this. A situation arises and we navigate our business around it or through it, good or bad, to get us to where we need to go. We don't necessarily share with our clients or employees why we're making those changes. We just know we have to make those
and everybody
changes.
Judges us unfairly for them.
Correct. I take that same mental gymnastic thought and apply it to what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
Is there more to it than what we know?
Now,
I just don't know the answer.
I will say my natural skepticism is...
This is where you're rubbing off.
Well, it's yes, of course, everything is always Hitler again. However, I would be the fool that I mock by assuming I knew the truth. It would also be a circumstance in which I'm trying to think, there's like some famous movies where people got away with crimes by essentially making it appear that there was a crime committed. They got investigated. It was proven they weren't the criminal, and then they committed the crime and used the evidence that they weren't the criminal. The first complex thing. So I don't want to be entirely dismissive, and I'm not dismissive at all. I'm skeptical only because that is the drum that's been beat again now. Yeah. Again, now that the newsroom's back in office.
Yeah, now I don't trust anything.
But also, organized humans in the modern Western world look a lot alike.
Yeah.
True. To your point, so what did somebody say? Listen, I've got nothing good to say about Hitler other than he was a really strong community organizer.
It's funny, but it's not funny, right? I just
and my one thought is I agree with you that there are things that very much parallel or even echo, and none so much as COVID.
Yes.
I've never seen people turn on each other so violently. I've never seen a complete crushing of government control. I've never seen a 2-tier system requiring papers.
Michelle nailed this morning when we were talking about an authoritarian government, and she just looked at me, and I love talking to her about this stuff because she thinks critically, analytically. She's like, well, didn't we have that with COVID? And I looked at her and said, ooh, good on you.
We did some places.
I said, tell me why you're saying that. And she said, because we were mandated that we had to get the vaccine. It wasn't a choice. We had to have it.
Oh, we were biologically engineered by force.
And I just
force is a little strong.
We were coerced. And she said, so yes, I mean, we've been moving in this direction in more ways than we acknowledge. And I'm like, you're right.
And how do you control people, especially when
this goes
the
back
division,
to
division of people? Now you've got a different problem because it isn't we, it isn't us.
Right.
It is in my mind, but it's very easy to think us, them, othering.
Yeah.
And like, the one thing, as much as I hated even our local policies, which attempted to crush my business and about 30% of them.
Yeah. It was awful.
Terrible judgment, terrible leadership.
In hindsight, I think everyone recognizes
that. No, but in hindsight, even now I can say, but man, I'm glad I wasn't in charge because I wouldn't have known what to do. Because it's not just what's the information, it's how do I manage the people? And that's a different
Do you guys
problem.
know when the COVID mandate that you're talking about happened?
Yeah, it was March.
I had just come back
27th. 16th, mid-March, because we had just gotten back from a cruise.
I had just gotten back from a golf trip in Vegas, and that Monday, I walked into the office, and the girls were telling me the office, we're going to shut it down.
I found out the week of we had to close indefinitely.
Well, you're talking about the vaccine mandate.
No,
I thought you were talking about.
I was talking about there was no vaccine mandate for us.
Okay,
we live in a red state,
right?
But the city forcing businesses to shut down, I found out. Now, that's only because I was not in touch, but I found out the week of that we were closed indefinitely. Yeah. No money, no funding, no recourse.
To answer your question, I think it was 60 or 90 days thereafter. If you were in healthcare, or if you were,
the vaccine was almost a year later.
Yeah. So there was.
So I got mine April 1st.
I think. Is that right?
21. Yeah.
So there was a mandate for certain industries that you had to have the vaccine or you couldn't come into work. Right. And I don't remember the date. And was it a year?
Well, I know that the J&J became available. I was there on the first day because I'd already decided I'll get that one.
Right.
And then I'll have my paper.
Here's what's interesting.
So April 1st was the first day my age bracket was eligible.
Got it.
So we have, Michelle and other people point out, rightly so, we had this authoritarian government, not putting it on a person, even though Trump was president at the time, but that doesn't really have anything to do with it.
And it was local governments that made the requirements.
Yeah,
but there was some federal stuff too.
Yeah, you're right. Most of any of the shutdowns were handled at the state level,
Democratic cities,
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So and actually most cities, and then some exceptions on the Republican side. I think most cities did shutdowns, most major cities.
Almost all of them.
But
I'll have to look. There
know.
was only 2 Republican
Florida
cities that closed down.
Miami did not.
The city and state levels were almost entirely aligned with.
So what I want to get at with this topic of an authoritarian government.
Yeah, sorry, we derailed.
Is there a time where authoritarianism
yeah.
is actually the right move?
Yep.
Well, yeah, there has to be, right?
And
how do you know?
Right, exactly. So now, of course, the Democrats were very much in favor of kind of taking more control, applying more mandates on people for the safety of whatever their reasons are related to COVID. But so the Republicans now have their reasons to put the clamps down on other subjects. So I wonder if we just unpack or just imagine is authoritarianism all wrong? And if the answer is no, sometimes it is the right move, or might be at least.
Sure.
Obviously, to me, and I suppose I could be wrong. Obviously, Trump thinks that this is one of those cases, especially because he's the one that's in charge.
Yeah.
And then many of the people that support him either deny it's happening, or they also think, we need someone that's going to take charge and force the issue of whatever thing that they're concerned about.
I'll tell you that my answer to your question is yes, of course. There's always going to be a time and place in this world where you have to have that. Where I feel that Lori and I made a mistake. When COVID hit and the vaccine came out, Lori got COVID. She was one of the first people that I knew to get COVID, and she really suffered. And everyone said, you've got to get the vaccine. You've got to get the vaccine. She goes and gets the vaccine, and that's what ultimately brought on long-term COVID for Lori.
Got it.
Right. And in hindsight, she and I recently were just talking about this. When the vaccine came out, we both said out loud, you can't trust that thing. It can't be that good. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. Maybe we're just coming to market way too fast. Even though I believe in the tech that exists that can bring a vaccine to market.
The smart people said this can't do that.
Right. So, she and I talk about that. And we're like,
can't do what?
How the hell did we go from we're not going to do it till we do it to I get long-term COVID? And it happened fast. I mean, that, you've got friends and family and everyone's got to get it. You got to get it. You got to do it. And then my past life comes in because I've traveled all over the world. I've been vaccinated more. I can't begin to tell you how many times I've been vaccinated and with what.
It did tremendous damage to vaccines in general, which I think is a very unfair association.
So I've been vaxxed to go into Central and South America and Europe and fill in the blanks, right?
Yeah.
But also that was very different technology.
Correct.
What my understanding
No,
was.
you're spot on. Yes.
That's why I when I chose the J&J, it was because the people that I were listening to talking about it said, this really, it's not going to help that much because we're on the front end of the pandemic. It's going to, assuming it works the way they do, it's going to soften, it's going to tail out.
Yeah.
But
I did buy into the tech.
Yeah.
And the
tech is fascinating, but there's a reason it been denied approval for 20 years.
Oh, we can't trust that now, right?
No, I'm just saying the reasons is because it's great. Like it's great for a deployment, right? They were talking about it's ideal for so many short-term things.
Right.
It's terrible for this context at this time in a viral pandemic.
That
was why people were advising against it, not because the whole concept was bad.
Right.
It's that this is not a tool for the problem we're having.
Yeah. Go ahead, Daniel.
Well, so my wife has an autoimmune disease as well, and she
pre or post COVID.
She's had it for years. Yeah, 20 some years. And she gets sick whenever she gets any kind of vaccine.
Oh yeah.
So like flu, she's gonna feel bad for 2 or 3 days. It's pretty normal.
That's pretty typical with autoimmune stuff.
Yeah, but it hits you harder if you have.
Yes.
Because you're reacting. Your body is reacting as though it is responding.
Exactly.
And that's very hard.
And so, and she's still, she does what I don't do, which is she talks to her doctor about getting a vaccine, and their advice was yes. And of course, I don't think they're always right, but I also don't know if they are right or wrong in this case.
I don't know if they know.
But yeah, I don't think that anybody knew in that case.
No.
But
at the time, yeah, that's
So
the thing is let's take it easy because nobody knew and everyone was guessing.
Right.
And if we didn't do anything, what would have happened?
So to bring this back on topic, though,
Everything's Hitler.
no, not everything. And I don't think that one of the things
Such an ass.
I know. I'm teasing.
one of the things I want to be really careful about is like just because, Hitler and the things that Hitler did and the Holocaust and all that happened doesn't mean that there's another version of it ever happening ever again. It was a very unique situation, but what was unique in that every situation
I'm not disagreeing.
has a
I'm
fingerprint, right?
Yeah. Don't let me distract you, please.
So, but what I would say is that that countries go through these cycles where, because of the tension between people of differing views, will pull between the government needs to do more and the government needs to do less, and then somebody wants power, and then another person wants power, and they get advantages over each other through politics and voting and whatever other ways that power is gained. And ultimately, it looks like an authoritarian government at this time. There's less activity from Congress. They're fighting, they're basically taking their position. They're not standing up to, what's the right way to say this? Basically, the position of Congress has been diminished to Trump. And so I think, just to be very open about my politics in this moment, I think that this looks like a ramp up to authoritarianism. And I think that it is, what I don't know is where it's going to end. But what I'm curious from you, Michael, and I've already heard your point of view, Aaron, but I'd love to hear you expand on it, is are we, nobody knows where we're going to end up, but is it foolish to even look at this situation in that way as a, I don't think it's
foolish. No,
I don't think it's foolish.
No, because I'm sorry.
No,
I was your opinion.
I was just saying I don't think it's foolish at all. Where we're going, man, great question.
I keep wondering
if only there was a foundational document that would prevent that from happening by clearly outlining and limiting the powers of individuals and governments.
Shocking. What would that document be called?
That in any circumstance of human organization, that is what would happen.
Well, but here's what's interesting about that is that,
because you're not wrong to think that could or would happen, because it will.
Everybody, yeah, exactly. Everybody interprets the Constitution differently, which is why they have these 9 Supreme Court judges that are essentially debating about it all the time, and that's why there could be a Roe versus Wade and then a reversal of it, because there are people that interpret it through the lens of their views on the world.
Sure.
And so what I see with the Constitution is that it is exploited, rightly and wrongly. So I'm not saying exploited as a universally bad word.
It's used,
but it's
for what
exploited
you need when you need
to accomplish the means that somebody wants, and that is exactly what happened in Germany in 1933. Is that Hitler exploited a loophole in the Constitution. And what we see has happened in the last couple of years is that the Supreme Court ruled that, or whenever it was, 3 years ago or something, the Supreme Court ruled that a president cannot be tried for anything that he does in the capacity as president. And so the point
which is why Obama's not being indicted.
Sure. And exactly. So what you see there,
Trump made everybody get out of jail for free.
Exactly. And also I would guess that wouldn't have happened anyway, but now it can't. Right. And so what you see with that sort of a conclusion from the Supreme Court is that now the president can do anything so long as they can say, I did this as president.
As an acting president. Right.
Well, hang on. No. So long as there is defense around it being part of their responsibilities, requirements, etc. They can't just do anything they want to do.
Right.
But your point is if
that's the longer version of what I was saying, though.
Yeah, well, but you were saying it that way to what's the word I'm looking for?
Sensationalize.
Thank you. Yeah, hyperbole.
Of course, this is a podcast.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's what we do.
No. Hey, we're not under oath here.
I think I've got.
But to your point, yes, I think, and I've always assumed a president is immune because the last time anyone really.
Nixon's the last president we got out of office.
And it's so funny to have learned about that so much later in life and been like, one, that was nothing. And two, he basically retired because he was embarrassed, not because he did anything.
Right.
He was just responsible.
Yeah, he took a higher road.
Yeah, right? Which coming on the tail of him being the most popular president across the board was wild. But anyways.
My answer to your question, Daniel, I think has always revolved around term limits. I think if you could bring term limits into play with Congress and Senate, across the board, where you're serving your country for a small period of time, not a lifetime, it gets the nonsense. It's a filter. It's a better filter.
So what? I don't disagree.
So
because you take somebody.
Go ahead.
Biden was a great example.
Yeah,
lived his whole lifetime
as a politician,
sucking off the teat.
Right. It used to be.
It was supposed to be public service, and now it's a path to wealth.
And in the early 1800s, we, as a country, we would look to our business leaders to come in and support our country.
Represent the public.
Yes, you got it.
And what would happen if they did something in their own interest?
Yeah.
We'd drag them out by their hair and beat the shit out of them.
That's right.
Somebody pointed out that, hey, you're allowed to do that.
Like
Which, by the way, if you're worried about overstepping, you can always be assured that we now know for a fact that if the right ever feels like something shady is happening, that they will fucking storm the Capitol. They won't just go burn down black neighborhoods like the left does. They'll actually go straight to the source.
Yeah. So I don't know the answer, but I do know I inherently believe we would be better served by our politicians if they were not lifetime politicians.
If they were representatives and not elites.
Yeah, I agree, because I think that when you're limited in the length of time that you can be in elected office, it just reduces the amount of power you can gain. Yeah. But the wealth thing, I don't think that that's avoidable. I think that people want you when you become the president or a senator, you then have influence regardless.
Well, and that's how you build your wealth. And I think that's why people are drawn to it. I'm sure there's very good people. I've met a few that I think were very good people. They're very ineffective people because they were there to do good.
Right.
But that doesn't mean all of them. So term limits creates their ability to gain wealth, which attracts a different group because now it's more of a status.
It does.
Yeah, well, and it's like the insider trading stuff, right?
Yes.
Like that. The question of it is not should somebody be able to profit, but like, isn't it weird that they get so wealthy, knowing ahead of time what's going to affect the market?
Yeah.
That seems criminal.
Yep.
But that's also poor people complain about everything. They hate when people do better than them.
That's right.
Yeah, that sure does suck.
You like how I put myself outside of that circle? How poor people are always driving 20-year-old cars, and
so
that's gotta be
in typical fashion, what have we resolved today in our podcast?
I would say we've made a pretty clear case that we can't resolve
anything,
a fucking thing.
Yeah, except for term limits. We do agree on term limits. It sounds like.
Yeah, I don't think.
I don't agree.
I don't think it can happen.
Well, because like with anything, who decides?
Yeah.
Exactly. That's why there is one for the president, is because it can be, the president is not the one who writes the bills.
Yeah. Right.
Which makes the legacy and family stuff like the Bushes. Kennedy's didn't have multiple presidencies, but their involvement with the attempts of the Clintons, Like, oh yeah, I can see now, like people can spend a lifetime building an empire.
Yeah, I'm going to get the years wrong, so forgive me, but I think there's a 20-year span where it was either a Reagan, a Clinton, or a Bush running our country.
Well, because there was Bushes on either ends of the
yes,
Clintons, and then
I have a Bush on each side of my house.
Yeah. So what I will tell you, something I'm really happy about today, is that we took a small step closer towards civilization by having disagreement, different opinions. Right.
And letting everybody talk for at least, for in your case, 20, 30 minutes nonstop.
As long as I get my 33%, that's all I'm here for.
I have heard people say to me, who's this Aaron guy? He seems to talk a lot on your podcast.
That's funny because I don't. And I know that for a fact because I'm the one who produces them. I hate the sound of my voice. And so I talk a lot less. But today I was a little fired up and wanted to participate.
Everybody have a great week.